every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emmy Apparel, encourage me, I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon and welcome to Put Your Family First podcast. Today is going to be a day where we get into a discussion about marriage and everything. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. And so, as we go into this process, I'm asking that you take off and put on your big boy, big girl ears and conversation and allow us to have this conversation today. We noticed that the numbers haven't changed in marriage. Marriage is something that is growing. It's not going down, but it's coming back up. And it's important for us to really see why marriage is coming back up. But today we're going to discuss some things forwards and backwards about marriage, in and out and across. Dr. Heather, how are you?
I'm good today, thank you.
Awesome. Dave, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So, Mama?
I'm great. How you doing?
Good. So, what I wanted to do was start this off by handing it over to you, Heather.
Oh, isn't that generous? Okay, well, I wanted to share some information that I found on marriage, especially in the state of Michigan. So our topic today is marriage from hindsight to insight. So as I've shared with our listeners before, I am in my third marriage, and my husband told me to stop saying that because he is my real marriage, he said. He said everybody else was just playing.
All right.
So, I wanted to share some of these stats I thought were interesting. So this is a different perspective as we look at the topic for today. I found information from the Michigan Department of Community Health that in 2023, there were 118,000 marriages, and there were 52,000 weddings. And the average cost of the weddings were around $23,000, but the kind of more the mainstream number is around $15,000 or $14,000 a year. The average number of guests or attendees at weddings are 126. And I just wanted to take a minute because Dave and I were having a conversation yesterday about, the role of our wedding guests, the role of the wedding party, that they're to witness, support, and cover those two people who decide to take the vows of marriage. So I really want to get into that conversation, Dave. I want to finish that conversation. Some of the other things that I uncovered that I thought were really interesting. Calvin talked about the rate of marriage, but one of the things that I found was that the average age of people who get married or got married in 2023 is 30 for men and 28 for women. And then one of the surprising facts or details that I found was that you can track marriages by region and the reasons why people get married. So the top reasons were income, education, family history, and children, and the desire for children. So I just thought those were interesting statistics and facts about how we live in Michigan to just kick off this conversation. Calvin?
No, Dave.
Well, alrighty then. That's interesting that you could see the various reasons why people get married. A lot of it is tradition. It's kind of the passed down mindset from generation to generation, and then we think about, having children and all the other aspects of education. But I think that, unfortunately, we go into marriages very uninformed, meaning that we gather our information vicariously through observation. And unfortunately, sometimes that observation is limited to the knowledge we need to really solidify our marriage and build on it. It's okay to, we follow mom and pop and the basic things they do, but we don't do the due diligence to ensure that we are properly informed to keep the marriage going long term, because marriage is a lifelong commitment. And unfortunately, as people say their vows, which is very nice, for better, for worse, right? Well, it's always good when it's better, right? But when worse show up, as Calvin would say, they got a parachute ready to jump. And some people jump without the parachute and just be done with it. So it's important you don't send people to do an operation or surgery without getting prepared. You don't have a cop go and be a police officer without getting prepared. You don't have a teacher go teach your students without being prepared. So there should be a stronger foundation in educating people before they get married. I know they do pre-marriage counseling, but that's not really preparation. That's just a little bit more information.
Wow. Now that makes a lot of sense. I know our daughter she wrote a paper when she was in high school that you should have to have a license to be a parent. I wonder if she would feel the same about a license to marry. Well, you actually do have to have a license to marry. You actually do have a license to marry, but there's no book. There's no preparation like you would for getting a driver's license.
Well, there are books. There are things you need to know before you get married. It's out there. The people think that the relationship that they are in functions the same way that they got in it. It's the same thing when you get into situations in marriage. How do you deal with situations? Everything is in the book. And because of how to handle relationships, how men could be this way and how women can do this, and you have pastors, preachers, you have authors, speakers, you have marriage. There's a whole marital movement. So you have these things. Out there. The issue is, who's going to pick it up and read it to learn to be in a marriage? How do you overcome? Like I said, you can watch the soap operas, and the soap operas teach you how to get over infidelity in a marriage. If you watch a Tyler Perry movie, it's going to always come to an end of a marriage, or a new relationship, or a pivot out of the relationship. Whatever the case may be, there is information out there. The question is, who's seeking the information to maintain, uplift? Who's asking the elders who's got 50 years how they made it, right? What to do? Who's parenting in the Philippine community? They mentor marriages, and that is an astonishing thing. When you get married in that culture, uncles come through, brothers come through, people come through, and make sure that your marriage starts off on the right foot. There's conversation in the Jewish community. where the Jewish community steps in before divorce is final. The process for our community is PTSD. It's in your code to do so. A friend of mine, her family hadn't had a divorce in 90 years inside of their family. That's a huge dynamic. We spend a lot of time on social media pushing away men and pushing away women, and we're very judgmental toward each other in that process. And so understanding and coming together so that we can, which is why so many other things are at the table now. Who's raising the boy to be a man, and who's raising the girl to be a wife, just as we had the conversation with Jason. So when you get into the conversation about marriage, how many marriages in your family alone are over 50 years, right? But do we reach out and say, hey, I'm in this situation. I know y'all probably been through it. Help me in my space, right? Who do you ask? There's so much judgment in family that when you do reach out, right, there's not a communal process for black marriage. Black marriage, like everything else, everyone wants something from you. But collectively, if we poured in to that process and understood that, maybe there are not so many single women. Maybe there are not so single men. No, we base everything on the struggle. It's hard. My money is this, is that. There are all these parameters in the way. So the question is not just hindsight, because when we did the workshop on are you a co-pilot or a passenger, that conversation went over pretty well. But the question is people get comfortable in their singleness. They get very comfortable in their singleness. And so in that process, we don't really want to get, well, I don't know if I'm there. We go through those processes and we see that. Well, men will say, well, my money ain't right. Women will be like, well, I really don't, right? So you're projecting the divorce before you can even really get into the relationship. So take it from there, Heather.
You dropped the mic on that, right? Well, I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is what is our beginning? So in order to have a stronger beginning, you really have to go back and look at your backstory. What is motivating you? One of the things that we talked about in our Connecting to Your Man workshop was that you need to know your love language. Like, you really need to understand that, and you also need to understand that it can change over time. Just like you're growing and changing, just like your mate or partner is growing and changing, you have to move with the ebb and flow. And somehow our expectation is that you're going to be the same person that I dated, you're going to be the same person that I married, and you're going to be the same person even years after that. Somewhere in our expectations, we forgot to rethink that. We forgot to reset and give the other person room to grow, room to know you better. And I think that as we do that more, we have our marriages and our relationships can get stronger. And giving the person the grace to grow and to change. Well, maybe I was a smoker at that time in my life. I no longer am a smoker. And what are the habits that go along with releasing that as a habit? So I think there are awakenings that we have to allow ourselves to have, and we have to give each other grace to have that awakening, to grow in new ways, grow out of old ways of being, and then usher in new ways of being, recognizing those benchmarks as we go along. So I think that's another important piece of when we are married. Like my first marriage, I married younger. So I was in my early 20s when I married, or my mid 20s when I married. who I am now in my mid-50s versus my mid-20s is a totally different woman. And so having the expectation that I'm still going to be that younger woman and who I am now is that's not fair. It's not fair to him, it's not fair to me. And so as we continue to grow, you have to grow from where you are. But as we're growing, being able to share those moments and have those conversations. And so I heard it said from some elders that, you know, the best marriage is one based on friendship. And so even in our friendships, we grow. But it is a level of a foundation that you care enough about somebody to even just be their friend. And then what does friendship mean? And how does that grow and expand? So I'd like to ask my co-host here, what are your thoughts on developing a marriage from a friendship?
Oh, Calvin. I think the friendship piece is an important aspect. Unfortunately, I'm a language guy, so we don't really have clear definitions of what a friendship is. So how can you go into something with a half perspective? You can't go into the movie and tell us all about the movie. You walked in the middle of the movie. And one of my things is that people should first be taught. Calvin brought a good point. The information is out there. It always has been. The problem is that we don't promote the information. And if we do, we don't have the skill set to promote in a way that is appeasing to the receiver. So usually that would be our kids, right? Even in some of those traditions, I lived in these countries, Japan, Korea, Philippines, Thailand, and they have traditions. But even they struggle with maintaining long-term relationships that are not really established on a true friendship, but sometimes arrangement. So the relationships may sustain because it's tradition, but the people may not be happy in the relationship. In America, we got freedom, so we can do a lot of things. I'm done with you. I'm divorcing you. But over in some of these countries, that's not so quick to do. Even in some of our religions, like the Jehovah's Witness, the Catholic, they have processes. But when we learn to understand the importance of the terms we use, and they're simple terms, friendship, friend, most people are not even friend with themselves. They haven't come comfortable with themselves. So if you go into anything with lack of information, see, my people destroyed because of lack of knowledge. So if you go without the proper knowledge or proper foundation, you're going to struggle. So friendship, I have a couple right now that I'm working with. Their parents were friends, and so they got married. They were friends that got married, and so what happened was the children at 5 became friends, and then they got married at 18. So now matter of fact, I showed you his work yesterday. Now they've been married 20-something years. And through that journey, they went through a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows. But the foundation, as you spoke of, was their friendship. And even during their little period of separation, that was the holding card for them. That was the glue that solidified their relationship. And as they moved forward through the trials and tribulations of worse, they were able to come back together and move forward. So I think having a clear understanding of these terms with you, love, friendship, responsibility, accountability, they need to be clarified because we all have our own meaning of it. And in most cases, like the 5 love languages, before this came out in 92, people didn't talk like this. This is the buzzword. I hear 5 love languages, 5 love languages. We should have been talking that before the book come out. But we won't talk about love in its meaning. You know I love you. You know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean. And then when it comes to a point where we're frustrated and angry, that foundational word that we've been, that main word we've been using, it doesn't hold up. So it's important that we can sit down and communicate it, even define the basic term is friendship.
It's tough. It's very, very tough. Great point, Dave, but it's very tough, right? And so
What's tough?
It's really tough to build anything these days with so much background noise, outside noise, the internet, girlfriends. Remember the statistic you read. You are 640% likely to get a divorce if you got a divorced woman in your ear. Right? So when you or a divorced person, let me not just say women. It's a very dynamic time because in my formula we don't value men, and in the formula that I come across we don't value women. And because of those two may be in the same area and may be pitted to see on the surface, you look beautiful, you fine, all of those things. But then your skill set, and the problem is that once you've gone through it before, the skill set is what you're looking for to even just do it, to get into the process. You are absolutely right. People change. People change within the marriage. I watch my brother, and I've watched men. I've watched my best friends, and I've watched people go through those things that bring them back together. But there's all these other things in between. See, marriage is not everybody snuggled in the house 24 hours a day up under each other. Mm-hmm. That's just not marriage. That's suffocation.
Why not?
That's suffocation. Because you can't move, right? If I'm in the house 24 hours a day stuck up under somebody, that's suffocation. We're talking about
stuck.
Yeah.
How about a desire to be there with the person?
Even if you desired, you can't be up under someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It just does not. That's not life.
Well, what do you mean up under? When you say up under someone,
how are you taking up under? I said 24 hours a day in the house with somebody, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not good. That's suffocation. Right across, she did 25 years. You think she want to be in the house with her husband? 24 hours a day, she's sitting across from you now, taking a break. What do you mean? Nobody wants that.
when you say up under, it doesn't necessarily mean, it could have lots of meanings. What I'm trying to get you to share, the one that you're speaking about.
In the house, you want me to go through this? I'll go through it to appease you. The house has 4 walls. Some have 6. Some are 1,500 square feet, 1,800 square feet. They might have 8, right? So there's 8 houses in a wall. You can only sleep or go into one room at a time, right? So in that process, you're in a home. Now, there's a whole nother world outside those walls. But if I'm inside those walls every day, that becomes a self-made prison. Sometimes we have to breathe. Sometimes we might have to do certain things.
I don't know that I agree.
You don't have to. Let me finish saying what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't have to agree. It's okay to disagree, right? Mm-hmm. But as I spoke before, a house is not a home, right? So a house becomes a prison, right? Psychologically, if that is where you are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it begins to feel like a prison, especially when you're in it and there are things that is going on in it. So this is why you have a job to go to. This is why some people go to the gym to go to. This is why people have hobbies. See, they're not in a home 24 hours a day. This is why you have to have these outlets in order to have the appreciation of a relationship. The world out there is woo. When I come home is I want to be able to come home in peace. This is a very underrated process. We underrate when I come home, I want to come home to peace. Not pieces, but peace. Right? When I go out into this world and do things, I want to go out into this world. I am going out into this world to see this world in a different way because I got to take it on in a different way. I'm a black man. A black man got to take on this world a different way. The black woman, she got to take on this world a different way. right? If you're a minority, sometimes you got to take on this world a different way. This is a different process for people. But when you're in a marriage, marriage takes a certain amount of work. But if you are up under me and I'm up under you 24 hours a day, tell me how something gonna get done other than sex. So that's what I mean by that. So now you can take it, run with it, hopscotch, do all the things you want to do, badminton, everything you want to do with it. You know what I mean? Go for it.
Well, I mean, how you establish what are the boundaries of your individual relationship is important. Absolutely. So if you're the type of person that needs to be out so a certain number of hours, that is something that you bring into your marriage. That's something that you have a conversation with. But also understanding if a person has that need, that in a marriage, you're supposed to be safe to have that conversation or to make accommodations where you may need the extra. And so as you get to know each other, and sometimes in new relationships, even new marriages, you want that time to bond and to be together with one another. So that's part of the conversations that we need to have. And so we talked early on about that there are tools and resources out there and conversations and people to have those conversations with. But the difference between having a driver's license is they gave you a manual to study to know what's coming. And that's something that's standard across the board. And I don't think that those other resources are necessarily standard across the board. If your religion supports that, then you may have a guideline. If your family culture or your region or your beliefs shape that, that's one thing. But what's standard across the board of what marriage is really developed by those two people who make that commitment. And that's gonna grow, and it's gonna shift, it's gonna bend, it's gonna flex over time. Where I want to put our energy in our conversation in terms of hindsight to insight is, what have we learned about marriage that helps it to be better and stronger? What is it that we can share with our listening audience, share with those people who are dating, who are thinking about being committed, those people who have been married and divorced and want to be married again? What do we do different? And hindsight for us in our relationships, because we have a vast amount of experience at the table right here, that we can make sure that our listeners have some new insights, perspectives, and tools to take along with you. So we know that it's going to take investment. There's an investment of time, energy, resources, beliefs. There's an investment of a lot of things that go into having a healthy marriage. And I just want to say these few things too about a healthy and stable marriage. From healthy and stable marriages, there's better physical and emotional health. There's a lower risk of developing cancer, dementia, heart disease, heart attack, depression, and substance abuse. When you have a stable and healthier marriage, those things are benefits to having that and investing in a healthy and stable marriage.
Oh, well, I concur. I think, again, hindsight is a great thing for foresight if people want to gain the wisdom. As you said, there's a lot of experience here. And so we have a lot of hindsight. I would say,
Lots.
Yeah. I say it's probably over 100,000 days of insight. If you live to be 50, that's 18,000 days, right? Mm. So each of us had those season years, so let's just play the numbers. And we've had a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows, and we've had a lot of disappointments. But I think you're not going to avoid any of that because you don't avoid it with yourself. Have you been with yourself and got frustrated? Ain't nobody else around you but you. And you got frustrated with you. So I think, again, I like to always come back from my hindsight saying the first person you have to work on is yourself. You have to be able to define who you are, what direction you want to go, and understand that you have to be reasonable about these expectations because there's too many variables that will alter the outcome. once you begin to understand what you want. So as I reflect back on my own life now, I would not necessarily go into a marriage with the ideals of other people's viewpoint, seeing myself and my world through other people's eyes. I could take their experiences and utilize them, but I need to define it for myself. So when a person goes into a relationship, they should be bold enough first not to go into a relationship with fear. You know, a lot of people go in relationships with fear, and they think fear is some terror. And there's two forms of fear. There's respective fear and there's terror fear. And so we should go in with a respective fear. Like, you know, you ain't going to put your hand on the stove because you know the fire going to burn you, but you respect it. So when you go into a relationship, you should have a level of understanding that I know what I want, I know who I am, and this is what I want to do. But again, be reasonable, because you can't go in just because your expectations is high that somebody's at that level. And people will fluctuate in levels of maturity. I think that it's important that we recognize that what is it that you really want, and then not just be from the external point of view, because that will change. I don't care who you are. You know, I have a picture on my phone with Billy Davis and Marilyn McCoo. He's 86 and she's 81. They don't look the same. They don't look like they did when they were in the fifth dimension. But they've been together all those years. And they're doing what they love best. They love to sing, but they also develop a spiritual aspect, because Billy was an alcoholic and he brought all kind of chaos into the relationship. And so she was out in her entertainment world doing her thing, but then they realized the unity that they had was that friendship, back to definition. And then they began to develop what is important to sustain longevity. So I think that when you go in a relationship as an individual, you know what you want. And you should be bold enough to say, tell me what you mean about love. Tell me what you mean about friendship. And have that in-depth conversation. You don't need a TV. You don't need YouTube and all those things. You need just you two sitting down talking about what is appeasing to you. And then build on that and realize that it's going to fluctuate. Because as you said, the person you were at 20 is not the person you are at 50. Why? Because you guys gathered experience. You understand the highs and lows, ups and downs, and what to do with those mountains and those storms. It's hard to have experience when you've only been on the planet 18 years. That's a high school experience. It ain't the same as a master's experience, you see? So there are things we have to go into a relationship defining. And unfortunately, as I like to say, your parents couldn't give you what they didn't have. So if they didn't do the investigation, as Calvin liked to say, they didn't eat the knowledge out there. They didn't have ears to hear the wise one was sharing with them. They were on their own ego trip and wanted to do their own thing. They're going to give you what they have. And in most cases, be honest, very few people can sit down and say, one parent sat down with me and they broke everything down to me about marriage and what to do and not to do in a positive way. Because if they peed off, they're going to talk about the man or the woman, and they're going to give you that negativity, and you're going to be a skeptic. You go in relationship suspicious, already as Calvin said, with the parachute on. So there's a lot of things. I mean, I can rattle on all day long on this, but I'm going to stop there. You do need to thyself be true, but to thyself you must know yourself. And then be bold enough, confident enough to talk to that individual, because once you sign that dotted line, basically that's the only commitment outside of your children that's lifelong. It's supposed to be.
Yes. Thanks, Dave. Well, I think that some of the other benefits, sometimes there are more obvious benefits to marriage, including, having a connection with someone, finding that common ground that you can build on. Trust and loyalty, companionship, sex is one.
Calvin's favorite word.
Doing it till he's satisfied.
Yes, please.
Come on, let's do it.
Building and sharing memories. I'm one that I like to take a lot of pictures of moments and capture those moments. And I appreciate the moments that I've captured through my journey even more now than I have before, because it's not necessarily about going back, but it's remembering, having the emotional connection to the experience that you had. Because those are sometimes things that can lift you up. And those times when you need that extra lift, like what it feels like, even on your wedding day, what that memory felt like. each time I got married on my wedding day, I still have the connection to what it felt like. And so to be able to have a sensory experience, meaning either have something that you took from that time or a picture that you experienced, helps you remember kind of your why. Why did I do that? Why, as we go through our ups and downs, this is the memory of that moment, which sometimes we just need to raise our frequency some. And so sometimes those tools can be helpful to help you raise your frequency and your vibration, to eliminate some of the negative things, or to say, this is what I'm in it for. Here's my reminder. That's one of the reasons why we exchange the rings, is so that you have that tool to remember your commitment that you made on that day, and to all the things that go along with that commitment, being forgiving, being loyal, being respectful, being and feeling understood by the other person. I think those things are really the symbols of the memory are also important. I think another piece that I like about marriage is that you have an opportunity to rewrite your story. You can rewrite your story, meaning that you can say that this is the direction that we're going, and as a couple, how can we rewrite our story? So we were moving in this direction. Now let's move in this direction. Let's move into a new adventure in life. Let's open up a new chapter so that we can experience things this way versus what we have been doing in the past. So there's room for your relationship to continue to grow and be exciting, and look at it a different way, not get so set in an old way of being that the flavor or the flair of life is lost. Because you still need that flavor in life. You still need that flavor in your marriage. Like you talked about being up under somebody, for long periods of time. Part of that is the lack of flavor. Because if you're doing that, then it may not be the room that you need for new flavor to be infused in that situation. So I understand that part of it. But how do you then add the flavor? What are you doing new and different? What are you experiencing that you want to bring back to that relationship? I think those things are also important as you talk about, as I look back in hindsight, that there are ways that you could continue to infuse new passion in your marriage. Like it doesn't have to stop here. It doesn't have to keep going this way. You can rewrite your story.
I think some of Calvin's, to kind of go with Calvin, I know I might not use the word suffocation, but I do know being in close proximity with somebody 24/7, I lived that life. That's called the military. I ate with them, I slept with them, I breathed with them, I did everything with them. At some point, I wanted to be away from them. Well, nothing to do with them. It's just who I am as a person, and I got to know that's who they are. So even though God designed us to be together, He also designed us to do things independently. Jesus got away from His disciples. At some point, He needed to go pray. He needed His space. But I concur with you when you say that when we do come together, in line with Calvin's statement, when I come home, this is my safe place. This is my peaceful place. This is my residence where I feel that I can let it all go. So if I'm under you, that day we ain't going nowhere. As the song say, I think I stay home today, just making love.
Billy Paul.
You see, because we got that flavor. I'm feeling it, and I just want to be with you all day. I don't care what we do. I just want to be in your space. But at some point, we need time to recreate. So we need to step away to come back together for the beautiful day we're going to have.
So I want to tap in here.
I was coming in. No.
I'm tapping in for the culture, right? Why marriage is so important to the culture, right? Because we is in that process, we have to make sure that we understand why marriage is so important to the culture, right?
Any particular culture or just? the culture in general?
African Americans,
Okay,
the blacks.
okay.
You black, the Negro, right? At the turn of the century, the African American culture married, coming out of slavery, the whole nine. We had 12 hospitals, economics. We had over 100 and some hospitals. Literally, we come out. We had 1 point some odd farms, million farms, right? We had, right? We're talking economics, right? But what we had was 70-some% marriage thing. This is what we had. When you come down the line, right? You've been under siege. Let's go. Even after the Depression, what did they discover after the Depression? We had the economy, but we didn't have, right? We didn't lock in like that. Why? Because you were spread all over the country. But at that point after the Depression, we didn't put our money in the banks because we had already been gaffed at the banks. So the African American family kept money on cash. Now, the story that it benefited was the Cadillac that you drive, black, right? So you got to understand who came behind these these car dealers, the whole nine. It was black. So Cadillac, who was on the verge of despair, it was the African American culture who saved Cadillac. Because then Cadillac started marketing itself, because Cadillac also was the first to give you a car lot, right? So Cadillac was then infused. This is why before they started, what's that? The one that do all the building, not Lowe's.
Home Depot?
Home Depot, when he went to get money from the guy that ran for president, Ross Perot.
Ross Perot.
So the owner from Home Depot drove to Ross Perot. He was in a Cadillac. Ross Perot almost didn't loan him the money because he was in a Cadillac, because he said it was black. Right? Culturally, marriages, when we come down, even as we get to the certain place, right? In the 60s, in the late 50s, culturally, right? Where did the divide occur? In the 50s, during World War II, we started hiring women. We saw that the women gonna go to work every day. The men, we have to manage money. So at that time, men managed money. So then we throw in this process where the women were going to work. We also throw in the process where we take out, you can't be in the home for welfare. Then again, it comes right back to, you sign the No Fault Divorce Act and you put that into play. Feminism explode, it tears up your home. Today, right? Right? This is why the voting went the way it went, because it was tearing up their home. They are accepted as pedophiles, perverts. Around neighbors, even if you pull it up, in the white culture, it's pedophiles everywhere around them. It's accepted. They're even trying to do something that said it's acceptable culture.
Yeah.
But us, what did we do? Behind the divide, that divide became our nature. And then what happened? They gained access to your children. 1965, the Juvenile Act. Where were your children going? Because they already knew we were going to divide you. Why? Because economics. We've been tearing down your economics since the turn of the century. See? We are buying into only this limitation. The reason why the black culture needs more marriages is to get our children out of foster care, get our children out of juvenile, and allow parenting and parents to raise our boys and get them out of this system that's making them rich. See? They're able to put their kids in the college, the whole nine, while your children are in foster care. They're able to put your children in college. He didn't say he was going to tear up foster care, did he? He didn't tell y'all, do Project 2025, we going to take away foster care. He didn't say that. He didn't say we was going to dismantle the juveniles. No. We're going to send these kids home. It's not what they did. So family is the missing ingredient in the African American culture. Me and you beefing about shoes, socks, what you got on. I hand you all this materialism and you shoot and kill another brother. And like I said before, every time, and listen to the words, and this is what has been indoctrinated into the culture. Listen to the words of what we say we've accepted. Our women are saying they a bad bitch. And it's then carried on. Everything that you do. So why not mimic this so they can follow that? See what I'm saying? That's what the black culture needs when we're talking about family. So the hindsight, that's the hindsight. The insight is we have to prepare our young men and our young women to be in relationships, and then from there let them blossom into economics and all those other things, just like everybody else. We need to prepare our young men and our young women to be educated as equally, and let them go into these processes and compete against everybody else. Let's put it down and let's stop the whole me versus you process, right? Because what has happened is now we have a considerable amount of people sitting on the sideline, from this sideline to that sideline, still pointing a finger and a cross. There's no accountability in the middle, and our children are unprotected. I'm done. Do your thing.
So as we talk about marriage, there are two things I want to bring to our attention as we're moving close to our end of the show. That our marriage becomes part of your family legacy. And as we talk about what things are important, rewriting your story, why it's important to rewrite your story, because that story becomes encoded on your DNA as individuals, as a husband and wife, as parents. That's encoded in you. That's what we have to pass down. That's part of the legacy. And when you are looking at the idea of marriage, making sure that the right ideas are being shared, like the right examples are being given, and how we do it better. So if we look at our parents and our grandparents, what can we do better? What can we take out of their experience so that their legacy of how they committed to a marriage and to one another then trickles down to generations. And it was, and I want to also share that I think the witnesses that witness the marriage is an important person. You're very important and instrumental in a marriage, because if you can't speak that life into them, then you cover them with that life. I don't think we have enough people praying for and over our marriages. You talk about what we do as a culture. We need to do more of that. So maybe you feel some kind of way about being involved. You may see some things going sideways. Prayer is a tool. It is a strength that we have. And in our culture, we have it really strong. We have to use it. We talk about exercising that. So it's one of the things that we have to remember. So when you get an invitation from now on, I hope this is something that you take with you to that ceremony, that you are a witness, but your purpose and your role in being a witness is to ensure that that union stays strong. So whether it's something that you are seeing, saying, or doing, if all else fails, continue to pray over that couple. Pray over their homes. Pray over their finances. Pray over their minds, that God keep them to the covenant that they are making. And hindsight, I think as we do more of this, then we'll see stronger marriages lasting longer, that we see the legacy from those marriages continue to birth new marriages as those children come of age, as the communities mature, that we have to really look at the tools that we have. And I think that's one of them that's deeply underrated and that is not used to capacity. We have to use that tool, because you have a responsibility as a witness to do that for that couple.
Everybody's praying, baby. I would like to prayer. Prayer is something that everybody's using. It's just a style.
That's a very optimistic look.
It's everywhere. It's on the internet. It's on the streets. They're on the corners. They're worshiping outside of the library. They're telling you about prayer, right? That
I'm speaking specifically of the connection of the witness, those who attend a marriage ceremony.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it, right? I think the damage has been done in a number of areas where the configuration, this is why people have to search now. Well, I'm looking at this church, but the person that stands behind the podium doesn't match. I've seen him at Club Zuzu, right? I'm looking at this church. Inappropriately touching women and having these things. I'm looking at this church. Criminality, and so the people are seen from the people that were supposed to administer marriage no longer is administering the call of marriage for financial politics. The church is full of women, but on any given Sunday they're not even talking marriage in church. They don't even talk the value of a man in church. So when we're talking about prayer, everybody's praying. It's just how we're praying. And I agree with you that it has to be a factor. It is most definitely a piece, right? In order for us to come together in a marriage, and I'm big on this. Any woman that wants to keep a man has to take that man's hand and pray for him. If you're not praying for the man that is in your life, you are failing your relationship, because the man requires protection himself, and that protection comes from your relationship with God as you take his hand and pray. If you're not doing those things, it's going to be hard to hang on to that man, because when we walk out the door, everybody wants some. Especially us caramel and chocolate covered and beige, and like seeing the variety of men that we make up. Everybody wants some. So you got to understand that's a major tool, a gift that you gave them. But I'm saying how you do that prayer in your relationship is so important.
Well, that's where the knowledge comes into play on how to pray, and what to pray for, and who to pray to. Terminology we use doesn't have a solid foundation and meaning to people, so it's kind of willy-nilly. But as you were saying, both of your points are valid. How do you pray? And you should pray, but some people don't know how to pray. And it's not a format that I'm talking about. It's a relationship with God. And whatever we should do, we should be doing it to honor God. Even that's why I said when we go into relationship, our reason for going to relationship to be able to honor God's plan, purpose, and will. And one of them was to be fruitful and multiply and build family. So, but if you don't have these foundational pieces, then again, that puzzle ain't going to come together well. So I think prayer is essential. I think that, I always say on my prayer calls, I have two, one at 6 and one at 7. And I say, if everybody got on these calls and was to come to a safe place and share what they have learned, what they have gathered, the hindsight you speak of, we could build relationships that would be strong. See, isolation kills, community builds. And so it's important for us to have a community that we can gain knowledge and wisdom, the wise ones. And I'm not just talking about chronological age, because some people are 18 years old and they got a lot of knowledge because they got Pacific. Either you're going to be a meaningful Pacific or one generality. And you know if you're one generality, like tumbleweeds in the desert, just blowing everywhere. But when you become Pacific in what you're doing, such as prayer, such as communication, such as understanding terms you use, then you have a higher probability of success in a marriage.
Heather, where can they meet you? Dave, where can they get you?
You can reach me at FMA David Patterson at Facebook, and you can reach me at drom7@yahoo.com.
Heather?
You can reach me at yourinspired with the D, journey.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. And call me direct at 313-759-7855.
In the coming months and days, starting in December, we all are going to do a better job of marketing this 4-time award-winning podcast. Also, to be clear, you can reach me at calvintman.com. To be clear, going forward, there's an interesting dynamic when it comes to marriage, right? This whole idea and concept, when we talk biblically, we go in the process, and right? But as I said many moons ago, no one discusses the vow. We've been here an hour. We did not discuss the vow. The vow is not on that paperwork. There wasn't paperwork back in the day, right? It was the vow. Why? Because the vow brings you the spiritual. The spiritual brings you the connection that cannot be torn apart, asunder. See, we like to play politics when it comes to marriage. I'm tired. I don't want to do this no more. We started pointing out ways, because when they gave you that no fault, you didn't want no fault. Look, today, as I said, there is no accountability. It is his fault or her fault. Majority of the time, it's his fault. You can ask a stranger. Somebody can say, hey, Monique, what happened? Y'all so. And all you would have to say is, the person also then said, what'd he do to you? And then we look up on Maury Povich and say, you're not the father. See, that's no accountability. What he do to you is saying, I'm free from this account. It was him. I see it all day, every day. Man wants access to his child. Just got a text right now. Man wants access to a child, but because the woman has lied so much about what she's been through, she wants to see him in jail for Baccaridge, away from the daughter, because now she got a man. But the child loves her father. You see? So this is what we're doing to our children as adults. This is why our children don't want to respect or have respect or go into school buck wild, because the adults are the children. We have to do better with our children. Marriage is one aspect of what we need to do better with. But to be honest with you, what a disappointing way for a child who loves her father to be under siege, under attack, just so I can keep telling the lies that I've been telling. That's disgusting. And in that process, the girl, this daughter, is growing up knowing, and will know one day, that Mom, you lied on Dad like that just to have this situation? This man has been charged with everything but treason. And so I'm telling y'all, as a family, when it comes to marriage, we have to understand it is not just a fling or a thing. It's a lifetime thing. My name is Calvin T. Man. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.